The lights inside the Grand Aurora Theatre burned brighter than the sun, pouring down onto the massive stage like liquid gold. Every seat was filled. Thousands of people packed shoulder to shoulder, their voices blending into a loud, restless buzz of excitement. Cameras rolled from every angle. Red lights blinked. This wasn't just a concert. It was a live televised charity talent night, watched by millions around the world. At the center of it all stood Victor Lane, a global superstar, a chart-topping legend, a man whose voice had filled stadiums for decades. Victor walked across the stage with confidence, waving to the crowd as cheers erupted. He wore a tailored black suit, perfectly fitted, every step calculated. He smiled, soaking in the applause like oxygen. Victor was famous for his powerful vocals. But behind the scenes, people knew something else. His ego was even bigger than his voice. As the applause finally settled, Victor glanced toward the backstage monitors where the contestants waited. Dozens of hopeful singers stood there, some whispering prayers, others pacing nervously. This night could change their lives, or end their dreams. Among them stood Amara Johnson. She was only 19 years old, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched a microphone that had clearly seen better days. The silver finish was scratched, the wire slightly bent. It was the only MIC she owned, bought second-hand with money. Her mother had saved over months. Amara didn't look like the others. She didn't have a stylist adjusting her hair. She didn't have a manager whispering strategies. She didn't have glittering jewelry or a designer gown. She wore a simple blue dress, carefully ironed, the kind her mother had helped her choose while saying, "You don't need fancy to be powerful." Amara came from a small town where stages were church steps and school auditoriums. She sang at family gatherings, at local events, anywhere someone would listen. Music wasn't fame to her, it was survival. It was how she expressed pain, hope, and everything she never said out loud. She swallowed hard as she watched Victor on the monitor. Then it happened. Victor's eyes stopped moving. They landed on Amara. He leaned closer to the screen, tilting his head slightly. A slow smile spread across his face, not a warm one, but a sharp, knowing smirk. The kind that made people uncomfortable without knowing why. Back on stage, Victor lifted the microphone again. "Well," he said casually, dragging the word out, "let's try something different tonight." The tone of his voice shifted. The crowd sensed it and grew quiet. Victor turned slightly and pointed toward the backstage area, directly at Amara. The camera followed his finger, zooming in on her face. Her eyes widened as she realized she was the focus, live, on national television. "I won her," Victor said clearly. A murmur spread through the audience. "To sing solo," he continued. "No band. No backup singers. No instruments." People exchanged glances. A ripple of laughter moved through sections of the crowd. Not loud, just enough to sting. Some people assumed it was a joke. Others sensed something cruel beneath the words. Amara felt her heartbeat slam against her ribs. The host hesitated. Victor, are you sure? We usually..." Victor waved him off. "Let's keep it raw," he said. "Let's see what happens when there's nothing to hide behind." Then he leaned closer to the microphone, lowering his voice just enough to sound intimate, but still sharp. "Let's see if raw talent really exists." He paused. "Or if it's just a nice story people like to tell." The words landed like a slap. Backstage, Amara's throat went dry. Her palms were damp. She could feel eyes on her from every direction. Contestants, crew members, cameras. A producer whispered, "You okay?" But the sound barely registered. This wasn't encouragement. This wasn't a fair challenge. This was humiliation disguised as opportunity. Victor wasn't giving her a chance to shine. He was testing her, on purpose, without mercy. Amara closed her eyes for a brief moment. Memories flooded in. Being told she wasn't polished enough. Being overlooked. Being doubted. Being underestimated because of where she came from and how she looked. Her chest tightened. But beneath the fear, something else stirred. Resolve. She straightened her shoulders and took a slow breath. If Victor wanted to break her on stage, he was about to learn something the hard way. Amara stepped onto the stage alone. No band followed her. No pianist took a seat. No backup singers waited in the shadows. There was nothing behind her. The vast Grand Aurora Theatre suddenly felt even bigger, its ceiling stretching endlessly above her like the sky. The polished floor reflected the lights, making it feel as though she was standing on glass. Every footstep echoed, reminding her, and everyone watching, that she was completely exposed. The massive screen behind her came to life. Her face filled it. Young, nervous, but somehow steady. Her dark eyes scanned the sea of faces before her. Thousands of strangers stared back, many with curiosity, some with doubt. A few already convinced this would be awkward, maybe even funny. Victor Lane sat comfortably in his chair at the edge of the stage, arms crossed, leaning back as if he were watching a movie. The corners of his mouth twitched upward, clearly entertained by the situation he had created. He lifted the microphone lazily. "Whenever you're ready," he said. His tone casual, almost bored. A few people in the crowd chuckled. Not cruel laughter. Not loud laughter. The kind of laughter that says, "This won't last long." Amara felt it hit her anyway. Her hands tightened around the microphone. For a brief second, doubt crept in. Her mouth felt dry. Her legs felt heavy. The silence pressed down on her chest like weight. So she did the only thing she knew how to do. She closed her eyes. The theater disappeared. She remembered her father, coming home late after long shifts, humming old soul songs while loosening his tie, his voice low and warm, like comfort itself. She remembered the nights she practiced quietly, sitting on the edge of her bed, holding a pillow against her mouth so the neighbors wouldn't complain, singing into the darkness, singing for herself. Amara took a breath. Not a shallow one. A deep, grounding breath, the kind that comes from somewhere far deeper than the lungs. And then she sang. The first note floated into the air. It was soft, not weak, not shaky, soft like a secret, pure, unshaking. It hung in the theater, gentle and clear, cutting through the noise, the judgment, the doubt. The laughter stopped. People blinked. Some frowned, confused, as if their brains needed a moment to catch up to what their ears were hearing. Amara opened her eyes. She sang again. The second note climbed higher, smooth and controlled, like she was stepping up an invisible staircase. No rush, no panic, just confidence. The crowd shifted. People leaned forward in their seats without realizing it. Phones lowered. Conversations stopped. Even the camera operators adjusted their focus, sensing something unexpected unfolding. Then Amara moved into a run. A clean, flowing sequence of notes that glided effortlessly from low to high, each one landing exactly where it should. There was no strain in her face, no tension in her shoulders. Her voice didn't fight the silence, it commanded it. A chill moved through the room. Somewhere in the audience, someone whispered, "Oh my God." Victor's smirk faded. He leaned forward now, arms no longer crossed. His expression shifted, confusion first, then concentration. He listened closely, his eyebrows slowly drawing together. Amara continued. Her voice grew fuller, richer. It carried emotion, not forced, not dramatic, but honest. Every note felt lived in, as if it came from real experiences rather than rehearsed technique. She wasn't trying to impress. She was telling a story, the kind you feel in your chest before you understand it with your mind. People stopped breathing without noticing. The theater, once buzzing with anticipation, was now wrapped in absolute silence. The kind of silence that only appears when everyone in the room is afraid to break the moment. Amara reached the end of the phrase and let the final note fade naturally, like a candle flickering out. No applause yet. No cheers. Just stunned quiet. Then she lifted her chin slightly, ready to continue. Victor stared at her. This wasn't part of the plan. This wasn't a joke anymore. Amara's voice didn't just fill the Grand Aurora Theatre. It owned it. And everyone there could feel it. Then Amara did something no one expected. As the final echo of her last phrase settled into the air, most singers would have stopped there. It would have been safe, respectable, enough to earn applause, and walk away with dignity. But Amara didn't lower the microphone. She stood still. Years ago, during a live award show, Victor Lane himself had attempted it, confident, unstoppable, certain of his own legend. He failed. His voice cracked. The moment went viral. Clips were replayed for years. Music critics still talked about it as the one note Victor never conquered. And now, standing alone under the lights, Amara was reaching for it. The crowd held its breath. Her voice began to rise. Slowly. Carefully. Perfect pitch. Each step upward was steady, controlled, fearless. There was no rush, no panic, no sign she might fall short. Her face remained calm, focused, as if she had been preparing for this moment her entire life. The sound climbed higher and higher. Victor sat up straight. His confident posture vanished. His eyes locked onto Amara, wide now, alert. His jaw tightened. He recognized exactly where she was headed. Don't, he thought. But Amara didn't stop. She hit the note. Clean. Full. Flawless. A collective gasp swept through the theater. She held it. 1 second. 2. 3. People froze. Hands flew to mouths. Someone near the front pressed, both palms against their chest as if steadying their heartbeat. 5 seconds. Amara's voice didn't waver. It didn't thin out or strain. It remained strong, ringing like crystal, filling every corner of the massive theater. 10 seconds. The audience exploded. Cheers erupted. People jumped to their feet. The sound crashed like thunder, applause, shouts, disbelief pouring out all at once. But Amara wasn't done. She didn't let the note drop. Instead, she went higher. A place no one expected her to go. The sound soared above everything, above the cheers, above the lights, above doubt itself. It was a note so clean, so powerful, so unreal. It felt almost impossible that it came from a single human voice. The applause stopped again, cut off mid-roar. The crowd was stunned into silence. Victor's face drained of color. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. His hands slid off the armrests, hanging uselessly at his sides. He knew that note. He knew it intimately. He had chased it for years. And he had never, not once, hit it. Amara held the note with grace, then gently eased out of it, guiding her voice downward like a feather drifting to the ground. The transition was seamless, elegant, controlled. She opened her eyes and finished the final phrase. She let the sound fade naturally into the air, allowing silence to reclaim the room. For half a second. Nothing. No applause. No cheering. No movement. It was as if time itself had paused. Then, the entire theater erupted. People leapt to their feet. The noise was deafening. Some screamed her name. Others cried openly, wiping their eyes, shaking their heads in disbelief. Strangers hugged strangers. Phones shot into the air, recording, sharing, capturing history in real time. Amara. The applause was still roaring when the host rushed back onto the stage, nearly tripping over his own excitement. His face was flushed, his voice shaking as he raised the microphone above the chaos. Ladies and gentlemen. He shouted, barely audible over the noise. Ladies and gentlemen, please. The crowd slowly began to settle, though cheers still burst out in waves. Some people were still standing. Others wiped tears from their eyes. The energy inside the Grand Aurora Theater felt electric, like something irreversible had just happened. The host took a breath. I think, he said carefully, letting the moment breathe. We just witnessed history. The audience roared again. The camera immediately cut away from the cheering crowd and zoomed in on Victor Lane. For the first time that night, the legendary singer looked uncomfortable. Gone was the confident smile. Gone was the relaxed posture. Victor shifted in his chair, jaw tight, eyes darting briefly around the room as if searching for something. Control. Maybe. Or an escape. Slowly, he stood. The movement alone caused a ripple through the audience. People quieted, sensing confrontation. Victor stepped onto the stage, his polished shoes clicking loudly against the floor. Each step felt heavier than the last. Amara remained where she was. Still. Calm. Waiting. As Victor approached, the crowd fell into near silence. Thousands of people watched closely, aware that this moment mattered almost as much as the performance itself. Victor stopped a few feet from Amara. For a brief second, he said nothing. He cleared his throat. His voice caught slightly, and he had to try again. I didn't expect that. The words sounded small. Empty. Amara didn't respond. She didn't smile. She didn't nod. She didn't look away. She simply met his eyes. Calm. Unshaken. Unapologetic. That quiet confidence unsettled Victor more than applause ever could. He let out a short, awkward laugh, trying to reclaim control. Well, he said, forcing lightness into his tone. You certainly proved your point. A few nervous chuckles echoed weakly from somewhere in the crowd. But they didn't last. Because everyone knew the truth. Amara hadn't proven a point. She had exposed one. The camera panned across the audience, faces full of realization, admiration, even anger. People whispered to one another, shaking their heads. The mood had shifted completely, and online? It was already exploding. Phones buzzed non-stop. Notifications flooded in. Clips of Amara's performance spread like wildfire across social media platforms. Comments poured in by the thousands. She sang circles around him. That note destroyed his ego. I've never seen someone humbled so fast. Talent doesn't need permission. The hashtag Amara Johnson began trending worldwide within minutes. Back on stage, Victor could feel it slipping away. The narrative. The authority. The spotlight. That night changed Amara Johnson's life forever. She didn't realize it at first. In the moment, everything felt unreal, like she was standing outside her own body, watching events unfold without fully understanding them. The applause, the lights, the cameras, the chants of her name, it all blurred together. But the change had already begun. Before Amara even left the Grand Aurora Theatre, her phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Missed calls stacked up. Messages flooded in faster than she could read them. Numbers she didn't recognize. Emails marked urgent. Record labels called. Producers begged. Talent managers promised the world. Everyone wanted her voice. Everyone wanted her story. By morning, clips of her performance had reached every corner of the internet. Millions of views. Reaction videos. Music professionals breaking down her technique. Replaying that impossible note again and again. She did it effortlessly. That control is once in a generation. This is what real talent sounds like. Amara's name was everywhere. But something surprised everyone. She didn't rush. She didn't sign the first contract placed in front of her. She didn't announce an album overnight. She didn't chase the noise. Instead, she went home. Back to the small house she grew up in. Back to the familiar walls that had heard her voice long before the world did. She sat at the kitchen table with her parents, phone buzzing non-stop beside her, and breathed. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she had to prove anything. A week later, Amara agreed to her first interview. The host smiled warmly, clearly still in awe. Millions of people watched what happened that night, he said. How did it feel, standing there, knowing you were being mocked? Amara thought for a moment. Then she smiled gently, not bitter, not defensive. I wasn't there to impress anyone, she said calmly. I was there to tell the truth with my voice. That single sentence spread almost as fast as her performance. It became a quote, a caption, a reminder. When Amara finally released her debut song, it wasn't flashy. No overproduction. No gimmicks. Just her voice, raw, emotional, honest. Within weeks, it topped the charts. Not because it was pushed, but because people felt it. Her concerts sold out. Critics praised her restraint as much as her power. Fans said her music felt like someone finally understood them. Amara never forgot where she came from. At every show, she took a moment to step back from the microphone and let the crowd sing with her. Not to show off, but to share the space. To remind everyone that music wasn't about dominance. It was about connection. And then there was Victor Lane. People still streamed his old hits. His voice was still undeniable. His legacy still existed. But something had shifted. Every interview he gave after that night followed the same pattern. He would speak about real talent, about discipline, about experience. And the internet would respond.